What if the secret to happiness wasn't chasing pleasures, but mastering your inner world? The ancient philosophy of Stoicism offers timeless wisdom for living a more fulfilled and balanced life. In today's video, we'll explore 13 Stoic principles you can apply to build happiness from within. We'll see why laughing more, connecting with nature, and practicing kindness can profoundly shift your perspective. By the end, you'll have a toolkit of practical strategies for navigating life's challenges with greater ease and joy. So let's dive in. Principle 1. Laugh more. Stoicism teaches us to find humor, even in adversity. As the great Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, later published as the Meditations, "You can choose not to be harmed by the things that happen and to find humor even in harsh circumstances." This isn't about denying or minimizing life's very real difficulties. Rather, it's about broadening our perspective and not letting challenges consume us. When we can find moments of lightness amidst the darkness, we're better able to cope and carry on. One simple way to practice this principle is to intentionally seek out reasons to smile and laugh each day. Maybe that means watching a funny show, sharing amusing stories with a friend, or finding the ironic or comical side of a frustrating situation. Laughter has a way of puncturing our stress and reminding us not to take ourselves or our worries too seriously. It gets us out of our heads and back into the moment at hand, and that's a powerful shift. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca observed, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. So much of our angst comes from ruminating on worst-case scenarios or blowing challenges out of proportion in our minds. Humor is an antidote to this. It keeps us tethered to what's real rather than spiraling in anxiety. Of course, there are situations where laughter isn't appropriate or accessible. Practicing this principle isn't about plastering on a fake smile or making light of others' pain. But when we can find genuine reasons to laugh amidst our own struggles, it has a way of loosening their grip. We gain a little distance, a modicum of relief. And that can make all the difference in our ability to endure and overcome. Laughter also has a way of connecting us with others. When we laugh together, walls come down. We feel a little less alone, a little more bonded in our shared humanity. And that too is a balm in difficult times. So look for opportunities to laugh, even if it's just for a moment. It may seem small, but it's a significant way to reclaim your well-being and build your resilience. Tough times are inevitable, but so is your capacity to find light in the darkness. Principle 2. Connect with nature. Getting outside is a cornerstone of Stoic mindfulness. Nature offers perspective and fosters inner calm, something Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and renowned Stoic philosopher, often wrote about. Here he is in Meditations. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. For Marcus Aurelius, one key way to access that inner quietude was through regular retreats into nature. The vastness of oceans and deserts, the resilience of forests, the steadiness of mountains, these things have a way of dwarfing our problems and reconnecting us with a sense of proportion. Against the backdrop of nature's epic scale and timeless rhythms, we can't help but be humbled. What's more, immersing ourselves in natural environments has been shown to measurably lower stress levels, boost mood and creativity, and even strengthen immune function. There's something about the colors, sounds, scents, and negative ions abundant in nature that recalibrates our nervous system and overall sense of well-being. You don't have to trek off to remote wilderness to gain these benefits either. Even a short walk in a nearby park, a few minutes feeling grass beneath your feet or sun on your face, can ground you in the present and grant an expanded outlook. If you're able to venture further afield on a hike, camping trip, or beach day, all the better. but simply prioritizing some time outside each day is a powerful practice. Keep in mind, it's not about doing anything in particular or striving to have some kind of transcendent experience. It's more about letting yourself be with and be moved by the natural world. Observe the flutter of leaves, the play of light, without rushing to capture it for social media or analyze what it all means. Breathe the fresh air and appreciate it filling your lungs. Feel your smallness and interconnectedness within the web of life. This might feel a tad uncomfortable at first if you're used to being constantly busy and plugged in. Stick with it. With time, you'll likely come to savor these interludes of quiet communion with nature as a crucial counterpoint to the frenzy of modern life. It's a way of restoring balance and perspective, of reminding ourselves that we belong to something much larger and more enduring than our fleeting worries and wants. In nature, we can touch into a steadiness and ease that's always accessible within us, even amidst life's turbulence. So consider how you might open yourself to more moments of nature connection, whether it's sitting in the park with your morning coffee, going for a quick jog around the block, or scheduling regular excursions to wilder spaces. Your body, mind, and soul will thank you. Principle 3. Be a morning person. Many Stoics extolled the virtues of waking up early to get a jump start on the day. As Marcus Aurelius put it in Meditations, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work, as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm?" There's a lot to unpack here. First, notice how Marcus Aurelius frames getting out of bed not as an annoyance or chore, but as an opportunity to fulfill his very purpose as a human being. That's a hefty dose of inspiration and meaning to fuel those first bleary-eyed moments of the day. He goes on to write, "But it's nicer here. So you were born to feel nice? Instead of doing things and experiencing them. Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you're not willing to do your job as a human being. Why aren't you running to do what your nature demands?" In other words, we weren't made for comfort and coziness alone. We were made to participate, to contribute, to dig in and do the work that's ours to do. Not in some burdensome way, but in a way that enlivens and fulfills us. Getting up early is a way of embracing that sacred duty, of claiming time for what matters most before the day's demands and distractions hijack our attention. It's a way of putting our priorities and purpose front and center. Of course, the specific hour you wake up is less important than the spirit with which you do it. The invitation is to greet each new day as a gift and an opportunity, rather than another slog to muddle through. One way to set yourself up for success is to craft a morning routine that anchors and energizes you. This might include activities like meditating, journaling, exercising, reading something inspiring, or mapping out your most important tasks for the day. The key is to create a consistent rhythm that supports you in starting the day grounded, focused, and connected to what's meaningful, whatever that looks like for you. Experiment with different practices and find what works. It's also about beginning the day deliberately rather than reactively. When we hop straight online or onto our devices, we're immediately pulled into other people's agendas and the churning news cycle. Whatever momentum and clarity we might have enjoyed gets quickly sapped. When we take even just a few minutes to set an intention and connect with ourselves first, we're much more likely to carry a sense of centeredness and purpose into the rest of the day. We're more resilient in the face of challenges and less likely to get derailed or discouraged. This isn't about adding yet another item to your already jam-packed to-do list or beating yourself up if you don't spring out of bed with the dawn every single day. It's not about being rigid or formulaic. Rather, it's about treating those first moments of the day as sacred, because they are. It's about claiming some stillness and space for yourself before diving into the fray. It's about starting the day as the subject, not the object, as the author and main character of your experience. So tonight, consider setting out your alarm clock, ideally not the one on your phone, for a little earlier than usual. When it goes off tomorrow, take a deep breath and remember Marcus Aurelius's wise counsel. You have a unique role to play in putting the world in order, and there's no time like the present to step into it. Let that knowing carry you into a day of purpose and presence. Principle 4. Pack your days with plans. One of the most insidious thieves of joy and productivity is procrastination. When we put off what we know we ought to do, we not only fritter away our time, but also contaminate our peace of mind. As Seneca wisely warned, putting things off is the biggest waste of life. It snatches away each day as it comes and denies us the present by promising the future. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You are arranging what lies in fortune's control and abandoning what lies in yours. What are you looking at? To what goal are you straining? The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. The Stoics' remedy? Be intentional about how you structure your days. As Seneca advised, you must match time's swiftness with your speed in using it, and you must drink quickly as though from a rapid stream that will not always flow. Just as travelers are beguiled by conversation or reading or some profound meditation and find they have arrived at their destination before they knew they were approaching it, so it is with this unceasing and extremely fast-moving journey of life, on which, waking or sleeping, we make equal progress. Preoccupied travelers do not notice their pace. In other words, pack your days with purposeful plans and pursuits. Be proactive about scheduling your time so it doesn't just slip away in reactive busy work or mindless diversions. This doesn't mean overstuffing your calendar or driving yourself into the ground with ceaseless doing. It's not about being busy for busyness' sake. Rather, it's about being intentional and taking ownership of how you invest the precious resource of your time and attention. Here's where Stoic wisdom around values and priorities comes in. When we get clear on what truly matters to us, what kind of person we want to be, what kind of life we want to lead, what kind of impact we want to have, it becomes much easier to discern what makes the cut and what needs to fall away. We can start to craft our days around activities that genuinely enrich and enliven us, that move the needle on our goals and growth edges. We can be more deliberate about carving out time for the people and projects that light us up and call forth our best. There's a common misconception that this kind of structure and discipline squelches spontaneity and flow. In fact, the opposite is true. When we have a clear plan and a reliable routine, it frees up cognitive bandwidth and willpower for the hard stuff. We don't have to waste precious energy reinventing the wheel or agonizing over what to do next. We can channel that focus into giving our all to the task at hand. What's more, even seemingly mundane activities, when approached with presence and care, can become opportunities for joy and meaning. As Marcus Aurelius observed, "If unwilling to rise in the morning, say to thyself, I awake to do the work of a man. Shall I do that which I was brought into this world to do, or shall I follow my indolence and remain in bed? Dost thou not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees, all doing their work and contributing their share to the perfect harmony of the universe?" In other words, it's not so much what we do, but how we do it. Even the most ordinary moments, making the bed, cooking a meal, tending to paperwork, can be infused with a sense of purpose and appreciation when we bring our full attention and care to them. This isn't about driving ourselves into the ground or denying our human need for rest and play. The Stoics were all about balance and moderation. It's about being awake to our choices and intentional with our precious time and energy. So take a few minutes now to reflect on your core values and goals. What kinds of activities and interactions make you come alive and call you to be your best self? How might you structure your days to make more room for what matters most? Remember, you don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Start small, perhaps with a simple morning or evening routine. The key is consistency and showing up fully, even for the little things. Trust that as you begin to live more deliberately, as you invest your time and attention in what nourishes and inspires you, you'll naturally start to see shifts. Your days will begin to align more and more with what you care about most. So, in conclusion to this section on packing your days with plans, be proactive, be purposeful, and remember that meaning can be found in even the most seemingly ordinary moments when we bring our full presence and care to them. Your time and attention are your most precious resources. Spend them in ways that truly light you up and leave you feeling fulfilled at the end of each day. Principle 5. Don't quit on what you love. One of the hallmarks of Stoicism is perseverance in the face of obstacles, especially when it comes to pursuits that truly light us up and call forth our best efforts. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if something is difficult for you to accomplish, do not then think it impossible for any human being. Rather, if it is humanly possible and corresponds to human nature, know that it is attainable by you as well. In other words, just because something is challenging doesn't mean it's not worth doing. In fact, it's often the very things that demand the most of us, that stretch and refine us in the process, that yield the deepest rewards. Think about a meaningful project or skill you're working on right now, or a dream you're in the process of bringing to fruition. Chances are it's something that lights you up, that engages your strengths and curiosities. But chances are, too, that it's not always smooth sailing. There are setbacks and learning curves, obstacles and doubts that rear their head along the way. It's in these moments that it can be tempting to throw in the towel, to question if it's really worth the effort. But what if we reframed these challenges not as stop signs, but as invitations to grow and recommit? What if we saw them not as indictments of our inadequacy, but as opportunities to flex our resilience and resourcefulness? The Stoics understood that anything worth achieving requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to beginners. As Epictetus counseled, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, get clear on what really matters to you, not just in terms of external accomplishments, but in terms of the kind of person you want to be and the qualities you want to embody. Then start showing up for that vision, day in and day out. This doesn't mean you'll never get discouraged or face setbacks. It doesn't mean you won't sometimes question if you're on the right track. But when you have a clear sense of what you're striving for and why, it's a lot easier to weather the ups and downs. You can reconnect with your deeper motivation and summon the strength to keep going, even when it's hard. You can remind yourself that challenges and failures aren't a reflection of your worth, but a natural part of the learning process. And here's the thing, it's in sticking with something, even through the rough patches, that we reap the greatest rewards. It's through consistent effort and application that we build mastery and meaning. When we stay the course with a creative project, we not only develop our skills and bring something new into the world, we also get to experience the bone-deep satisfaction of seeing something through. We get to witness our own capacity for growth and resilience. When we remain devoted to a craft or field of study, even when it's difficult or tedious, we not only deepen our knowledge and expertise, we also cultivate discipline, humility, and the ability to find joy in the process, not just the prizes. And when we keep showing up for a cause or community we believe in, even when progress is slow and setbacks are many, we not only contribute to something larger than ourselves, we also get to be part of a story and a purpose that lends meaning and direction to our days. So if there's something you care about deeply, a creative project, a course of study, a business venture, a relationship, a cause, don't give up on it just because it's hard. Dig into the difficulty, lean into the learning curve, trust that every challenge and seeming failure is refining you, strengthening you, equipping you to go the distance. You never know what breakthroughs and blessings are waiting for you on the other side of your perseverance. And if you do find yourself in a moment or a season of wanting to quit, be gentle with yourself. Step back and reconnect with why you took this on in the first place. What drew you to it? What were you hoping to create, experience, or contribute? Is that still something you value? Sometimes we realize that our goals or priorities have genuinely shifted, and that's okay. The Stoics were all about aligning our efforts with our deepest values and callings. If something is no longer lighting you up or bringing out your best, it's worth re-evaluating. But more often than not, the impulse to quit is just resistance in disguise. It's the mind's way of trying to keep us safe and comfortable. And while there's nothing wrong with comfort, per se, a life of meaning and mastery requires us to continually push past the edges of our comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. That's where we discover what we're really made of and what we're capable of creating, enduring, offering. So the next time you find yourself wanting to throw in the towel on something you once cared about deeply, pause and get curious. What is this resistance trying to show you? What might become possible if you recommitted, even for just a day or an hour more? One small way to honor this principle is to reflect on a recent challenge or setback you faced in an area that matters to you. How did you meet it? What did you learn about yourself in the process? How might this experience equip and inspire you going forward? Alternatively, you could set a timer for a focused work session on a project or pursuit that's been challenging you lately. Bring your full attention and effort to it, without getting attached to any particular outcome. Notice what shifts for you when you show up fully, just for the sake of the practice. Remember, difficulty isn't a dead end, but a doorway. With patience and persistence, there's no telling what possibilities await on the other side. So don't quit on what you love. The world needs your gifts and your grit, now more than ever. Principle 6. Go for kindness. One of the core tenets of Stoicism is the belief that we're all part of a larger human community, and that we each have a responsibility to contribute to the greater good. As Marcus Aurelius put it, what is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bees. The Stoics understood that our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of those around us. When we lift others up, we can't help but rise ourselves. Conversely, when we cause harm or heartache, we diminish our own humanity in the process. This is where the importance of kindness comes in. Kindness is the glue that binds us together, the balm that soothes suffering, the light that illuminates the best in ourselves and others. It's the recognition that every person we meet is fighting their own battles, harboring their own hopes and fears and aches, and that a little bit of compassion can go a long way. As Seneca advised, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for a kindness. Just think about how good it feels when someone goes out of their way to help you, to listen to you, to let you know that you matter. Even the smallest acts of consideration, a smile from a stranger, a heartfelt "thank you," a door held open when your hands are full, can brighten your whole day and remind you of the goodness in the world. Now imagine intentionally looking for opportunities to be that person for others, to offer a word of encouragement, a helping hand, a gesture of care, to give someone the gift of feeling seen and valued, even if just for a moment. This isn't about being a martyr or a doormat. It's not about sacrificing your own needs or boundaries for the sake of others' comfort. The Stoics were big believers in self-respect and taking responsibility for our own well-being. But they also recognized that true happiness and fulfillment come not just from what we achieve for ourselves, but from what we give and how we show up for others. There's a deep joy and sense of meaning that comes from contributing to something larger than ourselves, from being a force for goodness and healing in the world. What's more, practicing kindness has a way of softening our own hearts and perspectives. When we're in the habit of extending compassion and care to others, we can't help but start relating to ourselves with more gentleness and understanding too. We start to see our own struggles and imperfections through a lens of shared humanity, rather than shame or self-judgment. We start to cut ourselves the same slack we so readily grant to others. So how can we begin to infuse more kindness into our days? It doesn't have to be anything grand or complicated. Start small and trust that it will ripple out in ways you can't even imagine. Maybe it's taking a moment to really listen to a friend or colleague without getting distracted or trying to fix things. Maybe it's offering a sincere compliment or expression of appreciation, even if, especially if, it feels a little vulnerable. Maybe it's going out of your way to help a neighbor with their yard work, or to run an errand for a family member who's been stressed. The key is to start looking for opportunities to be generous with your attention, your efforts, your heart. Challenge yourself to perform at least one deliberate act of kindness each day and see how it shifts your perspective and experience. You might also reflect on the kindness you've received from others over the years. Who has gone out of their way to support, encourage, or simply be with you? What did that mean to you? How might you pay it forward? Remember, kindness isn't a luxury or a nice-to-have. It's an essential part of what it means to be human, to belong to one another. It's a powerful force for healing and transformation, in our own lives and in the world at large. As the Stoics remind us, we're all in this together. We all have a part to play in uplifting the human spirit and alleviating suffering where we can. Kindness is how we do that, one small, brave act at a time. So don't underestimate the power of your compassion, your care, your willingness to show up for others. It matters more than you know. As Marcus Aurelius put it, kindness is invincible if it's sincere. Let's commit to making ours a life of sincerity and service, in whatever ways we can. The world will be better for it, and so will we. Principle 7. Say yes more often. Stoicism gets a bit of a bad rap for being austere and unemotional, but the truth is, the Stoics were all about embracing life in its fullness and cultivating openness to experience. They understood that true happiness and meaning come not from hiding out or playing it safe, but from engaging wholeheartedly with the world and all it has to offer. One simple but profound way to practice this is to start saying yes more often, to new experiences, to connection, to growth, to lean into our curiosity and sense of adventure, even, especially, when it feels scary or uncomfortable. As Seneca put it, the mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. When we're stuck in fear or resistance, we're not available to the beauty and possibility of the present. We miss out on so many opportunities to learn, to connect, to come alive. Think about a time you took a chance on something new. Maybe you traveled solo for the first time, or signed up for a class outside your comfort zone, or agreed to a social invitation you normally would have declined. Chances are, even if it was awkward or challenging in the moment, you came away with a richer understanding of yourself and the world. You stretched and grew in ways you wouldn't have otherwise. Saying yes is about cultivating that spirit of openness and exploration, that willingness to step into the unknown and trust that you can handle whatever arises. It's about having faith in your own resilience and resourcefulness and in the basic friendliness of the universe. This doesn't mean you have to accept every single invitation or opportunity that comes your way, regardless of your needs or boundaries. The Stoics were all about discernment and living in alignment with our deepest values. It's important to be intentional about where we invest our time and energy, but it does mean being willing to question our knee-jerk impulse to say no out of fear or inertia. It means being open to experiences and encounters that might challenge or change us for the better. Maybe that looks like finally booking that trip you've been fantasizing about for years, even if it means navigating some logistical hurdles. Maybe it looks like reaching out to that person you admire and inviting them for coffee, even if you feel shy or starstruck. Maybe it looks like trying a new hobby or activity, even if you're pretty sure you'll be terrible at it. The point isn't to achieve some particular outcome or to impress anyone. It's simply to stay engaged and awake to life, to the endless opportunities for discovery and delight that await us when we say yes. It's also a powerful way to build confidence and resilience. The more we lean into experiences that scare or stretch us, the more we learn to trust ourselves to handle whatever comes. We start to see that discomfort isn't dangerous, and that we're capable of so much more than we often give ourselves credit for. Of course, saying yes can also be as simple and subtle as bringing a spirit of curiosity and interest to our everyday lives. It might mean engaging in conversations with strangers or acquaintances, even when we're tempted to stick to small talk. It might mean trying a new restaurant or walking a different route home just to mix things up. It might mean picking up a book outside our usual genre or listening to a podcast on a topic we know nothing about. The key is to approach life with a sense of wonder and willingness, to stay open to the unexpected gifts and lessons each moment might bring. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Say to yourself in the early morning, I shall meet today ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men. All of these things have come upon them through ignorance of real good and ill. I can neither be harmed by any of them, for no man will involve me in wrong, nor can I be angry with my kinsman or hate him, for we have come into the world to work together." In other words, when we start the day with the intention to meet each person and circumstance with openness and understanding, we're far more likely to find meaning and connection, even in difficult situations. We're able to stay grounded in our own sense of purpose and goodwill, rather than getting caught up in others' drama or negativity. So consider where in your life you might be holding back or playing small out of fear or habit. What would it look like to say yes to more growth, more contribution, more aliveness? What tiny risk or invitation could you accept today as practice? Remember, on the other side of yes is a world of magic and possibility. It's not always comfortable, but it's where life happens. Trust yourself enough to open to it, to let yourself be changed and expanded by all this human experience has to offer. As Seneca wrote, "No one, you say, invited me. Why, you were invited by being born. This is enough of an invitation." Principle 8. Turn off your phone. Sometimes, in our always-on, hyper-connected culture, it's easy to feel like we need to be reachable and responsive 24/7. But the Stoics recognized the importance of periodic retreat and solitude, of making time to unplug from the chatter and reconnect with ourselves. As Epictetus advised, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Sometimes the most nourishing and uplifting presence is our own, but in order to access that inner wisdom and wellspring, we need to create space away from the constant stimuli and demands of the outside world. We need to get intentional about cultivating quiet and solitude. One simple but powerful way to do this is to periodically turn off your phone and other devices. It might be for an hour in the morning or evening, a full day on the weekend, or even a week-long digital detox if you're feeling ambitious. The point isn't necessarily to be completely off the grid or to never use technology. The Stoics were all about moderation and finding the right tools for the job, but they also recognized the danger of becoming slave to our devices and distractions, of losing touch with our own inner compass. When we're constantly tethered to our screens, it's hard to be truly present and grounded. We're always half elsewhere, anticipating the next notification or scroll. We lose the ability to simply be with ourselves, to think our own thoughts and feel our own feelings without intermediary. What's more, being hyperconnected can keep us in a state of low-grade anxiety and reactivity. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others' highlight reels, getting swept up in the latest news cycle or social media drama. It's hard to discern what really matters or what's ours to do when we're perpetually at the mercy of external stimuli. But when we create space away from the noise, we open up the possibility for deeper connection and creativity. We give ourselves the gift of solitude, which is not the same as loneliness. Solitude is a state of being alone without being lonely, of finding nourishment and sufficiency in our own company. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." When we turn off the chatter and tune into ourselves, we access a wellspring of wisdom and resilience that's always available to us. So what might it look like to carve out some unplugged time for yourself? Maybe it's committing to keep your phone out of the bedroom, so you can start and end the day on your own terms. Maybe it's taking a walk in nature without any devices, so you can fully immerse in the beauty and rhythms of the more than human world. Maybe it's setting aside a few hours on the weekend for a hobby or creative project with your phone on airplane mode so you can sink into flow without interruption. The key is to start small and sustainable, and to approach it as an act of self-care rather than self-punishment. This isn't about depriving yourself or proving anything. It's about giving yourself the space and permission to simply be, to reconnect with your own inner landscape. You might be surprised at what arises in the stillness. Maybe it's a creative insight or solution to a problem you've been grappling with. Maybe it's a deeper sense of self-compassion and acceptance. Maybe it's simply a feeling of peace and presence that you can carry with you into the rest of your day. Remember, in a world that's constantly vying for our attention and allegiance, choosing to unplug is a radical act of self-sovereignty. It's a way of saying, my time and attention are precious, and I get to decide how I spend them. It's a way of honoring our fundamental humanity and inherent worth, beyond what we produce or consume. So don't be afraid to step away from the fray and find sanctuary in solitude. Treat it as a sacred act of self-care and self-discovery. Trust that the world will keep spinning without your constant vigilance, and that you'll be better resourced to show up for what matters when you've taken time to fill your own cup. As Epictetus put it, the greatest task in life is to find out who we really are, and the second greatest is to be content with the result. Unplugging helps us do both, to peel back the layers of conditioning and distraction, and to make peace with what we find beneath. It's a powerful way to cultivate self-awareness and self-acceptance, which are the cornerstones of a life well lived. So start small, but start somewhere. Carve out some screen-free sanctuaries in your weekly rhythm. Notice how you feel as you settle into your own good company. and trust that by honoring your own need for quiet and connection, you're not only nourishing yourself, you're helping to heal the whole. Principle 9. Take breaks and go on trips. In a culture that glorifies busyness and productivity, it's easy to feel like we need to be on and achieving all the time. But the Stoics recognize the importance of regular rest and renewal, of stepping back from the grind to recharge and gain perspective. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Take rest. A field that has rested yields a beautiful crop." Just as a field needs to lie fallow between growing seasons, our minds and bodies need periodic breaks from the demands of work and daily life. When we're always in output mode, we quickly deplete our inner resources. We lose touch with our creativity, our compassion, our sense of purpose and possibility. But when we take time to rest and recharge, we come back to our lives with fresh energy and insight. We're better able to show up for what matters most and to find meaning and joy in the everyday. One way to honor this principle is to build regular breaks into your daily and weekly rhythm. That might look like taking a few minutes to stretch or walk between tasks, or carving out an hour for a nap or a good book on the weekends. It might mean scheduling regular digital detoxes or screen-free evenings so you can unplug and unwind. The key is to treat rest not as a reward for productivity, but as an essential part of the process. It's not something you have to earn or justify. It's something you inherently deserve, simply by virtue of being human. Another powerful way to practice this principle is to periodically take longer breaks in the form of trips or vacations. There's something about getting away from our usual routines and environments that helps us shift perspective and reconnect with what really matters. When we step out of the daily grind and into new surroundings, we give ourselves space to breathe and dream and wonder. We remember that there's more to life than our to-do lists and inboxes. We open up to new experiences and encounters that refresh our sense of possibility. It doesn't have to be a far-flung or expensive getaway either. Even a day trip to a nearby town or natural area can work wonders for our state of mind. The point is to break the trance of the habitual and give ourselves permission to simply be without agenda or expectation. Of course, in our fast-paced and demanding world, it's easy to feel like we can't afford to take breaks or vacations. There's always more work to be done, more obligations to meet, more plates to keep spinning. But the Stoics would argue that we can't afford not to prioritize rest and renewal. When we're perpetually exhausted and burnt out, we're not much good to anyone, least of all ourselves. We're more likely to make mistakes, to lash out at others, to lose sight of what really matters. By contrast, when we take time to fill our own cups, we have more to give to the people and projects that depend on us. We bring more creativity, clarity, and compassion to our endeavors. We're better able to weather the inevitable challenges and setbacks that arise. So consider how you might build more rest and recreation into your life. Start small, perhaps with a commitment to take a genuine lunch break away from your desk each day. Work your way up to planning a weekend getaway or a longer vacation, even if it's a simple staycation at home. And when the inevitable guilt or FOMO arises, remind yourself that rest is not a luxury, but a necessity. It's an act of self-care and self-preservation in service of showing up as your best self for the long haul. As Seneca put it, we must go for walks out of doors so that the mind can be strengthened and invigorated by a clear sky and plenty of fresh air. At times, it will acquire fresh energy from a journey by carriage and a change of scene, or from socializing and drinking freely. Occasionally, we should even come to the point of intoxication, sinking into drink but not being totally flooded by it. For it does wash away cares and stirs the mind to its depths and heals sorrow just as it heals certain diseases. In other words, The Stoics weren't opposed to letting loose and living a little. They simply recognized the importance of moderation and intentionality, of balancing work with play, effort with ease, discipline with delight. So give yourself permission to prioritize pleasure and recreation in whatever form feels most nourishing for you. Trust that by tending to your own aliveness and enjoyment, you're not only honoring your humanity, you're helping to create a world with more room for beauty and delight. And know that your worth is not measured by your output or accomplishments, but by your willingness to show up fully and consciously for this one wild and precious life. As Mary Oliver put it, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" May we all make space for savoring and celebrating the gift of our days. May we remember that our worthiness is inherent, not earned. And may we find freedom in knowing that rest is not a reward, but a responsibility to ourselves and to all those who depend on our full presence and vitality. Principle 10. Hang out with friends and family. The Stoics were big believers in the importance of community and connection. They recognized that humans are fundamentally social creatures and that our relationships play a huge role in our happiness and well-being. As Seneca wrote, "Without friends, no one would want to live, even if he had all other goods." In our hyper-individualistic culture, it's easy to buy into the myth of the self-made man or woman, the idea that we should be able to handle everything on our own without relying on others. But the truth is, we all need support and connection to thrive. Our friends and family are the people who know us best, who have seen us through our ups and downs, who celebrate our triumphs and comfort us in our sorrows. They're the ones who remind us of our inherent worthiness and lovability, even when we're struggling to see it ourselves. What's more, spending time with loved ones is one of the most reliable sources of joy and meaning in life. When we're fully present with the people we care about, sharing laughter and stories and heartfelt conversation, we tap into a deep sense of belonging and purpose. As Epictetus put it, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Of course, in our busy and overscheduled lives, it's easy to let our relationships fall by the wayside. We get caught up in work and errands and endless to-do lists, and before we know it, weeks or even months have gone by since we've had any quality time with the people who matter most. But the Stoics would argue that nurturing our relationships is one of the most important investments we can make, not only in our own happiness, but in the greater good. When we show up for the people we love with presence and care, we create ripples of kindness and connection that extend far beyond ourselves. So consider how you might prioritize your relationships in the midst of a full and demanding life. That might look like setting aside regular time each week for date nights with your partner or Sunday dinners with your family. It might mean scheduling monthly get-togethers with your closest friends, or even just picking up the phone and calling someone you've been thinking about. It doesn't have to be grand or elaborate. Even a quick text or a thoughtful note can go a long way in letting someone know you care. The point is simply to make your relationships a priority and to approach them with the same level of intention and care that you bring to your other commitments. And when you do have the opportunity to spend quality time with loved ones, try to be fully present and engaged. Put away your devices, set aside your agenda, and simply focus on enjoying each other's company. Ask questions, share stories, and really listen to what the other person has to say. Remember, too, that relationships require vulnerability and effort from both sides. It's not enough to simply show up and expect to be entertained or uplifted. We need to be willing to share ourselves authentically and to put in the work of understanding and supporting others. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, we ought to do good to others as simply as a horse runs, or a bee makes honey, or a vine bears grapes season after season without thinking of the grapes it has borne. In other words, being there for the people we care about shouldn't feel like a chore or an obligation. It should be a natural expression of our humanity and our interconnectedness. When we approach our relationships with generosity and goodwill, we create a positive feedback loop of love and support that sustains us through life's challenges. Of course, even the best relationships can be difficult at times. We all have our quirks and rough edges, and it's inevitable that we'll bump up against each other's sore spots from time to time. But the Stoics would remind us that conflict and discomfort are opportunities for growth and understanding. When we're willing to have the hard conversations, to really listen and seek to understand each other's perspectives, we open up the possibility for deeper connection and mutual flourishing. As Epictetus put it, "When you lose a friend and are grieving, keep in mind that the friendship gave you many gifts for which you should be grateful." Some friendships last a lifetime, others only a short time. Accepting what is, rather than arguing with reality, will help you to heal. Of course, self-care also plays an important role in our ability to show up well for others. We can't pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes. When we're depleted and burnt out, it's hard to be present and supportive for the people we love. So remember to prioritize your own well-being alongside your relationships. Make time for activities that fill you up and bring you joy, whether that's exercise, creative pursuits, time in nature, or simply quiet moments of rest and reflection. And when you do show up for your loved ones, try to bring your full and best self to the table. Be generous with your attention, your compassion, and your willingness to both give and receive support. Remember, we're all in this together, navigating the joys and sorrows of this human life. Our relationships are a precious reminder of our fundamental interconnectedness, of the fact that we belong to each other, and that we're all worthy of love and care. So cherish your people and let yourself be cherished in return. Invest in your relationships with presence and intention, and watch as they bear fruit in all areas of your life. And know that by showing up for your loved ones with an open heart, you're not only nourishing your own happiness, you're helping to create a world with more room for love and belonging. Principle 11. Help others out. One of the core tenets of Stoicism is the idea that we have a duty to contribute to the greater good. That true fulfillment comes not just from pursuing our own happiness, but from making a positive difference in the world. As Marcus Aurelius put it, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bees." In other words, our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the communities and ecosystems we belong to. When we show up in service of something larger than ourselves, we tap into a deep sense of meaning and purpose. One simple but powerful way to practice this principle is to look for opportunities to help others out. This might mean volunteering for a cause we believe in, or simply extending a hand to someone in need in our daily lives. Maybe it's offering to babysit for a friend who's going through a tough time, or helping an elderly neighbor with their yard work. Maybe it's donating to a local food bank, or advocating for a policy that supports the most vulnerable members of our community. The key is to approach these acts of service not as a burden or an obligation, but as an opportunity to express our values and make a meaningful difference. When we give from a place of genuine care and concern, rather than guilt or self-righteousness, we open ourselves up to the joy and connection that comes from contributing to something larger than ourselves. As Seneca wrote, "The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. The wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." In other words, true wealth and fulfillment come not from accumulating more for ourselves, but from using what we have in service of others. When we focus on being generous with our time, energy, and resources, we tap into an abundance that goes beyond material gain. Of course, it's important to find a balance between giving to others and taking care of ourselves. The Stoics were big believers in the importance of self-care and personal responsibility. We can't pour from an empty cup, after all. But they also recognized that sometimes the best way to fill our own cup is to focus on filling others. When we get out of our own heads and into a spirit of service, we often find that our own worries and stresses start to fade into the background. So consider how you might incorporate more acts of service into your daily life. It doesn't have to be anything grand or heroic. Sometimes the most meaningful acts of kindness are the small, everyday gestures of care and consideration. Maybe it's taking a moment to really listen to a friend who's going through a hard time, or offering a word of encouragement to a colleague who's struggling with a project. Maybe it's picking up litter in your neighborhood or holding the door open for a stranger with their hands full. The point is simply to approach each interaction and opportunity with a spirit of generosity and goodwill, to remember that we're all in this together and that every act of kindness ripples out in ways we may never fully understand. And when we do find ourselves getting caught up in our own struggles and stresses, it can be helpful to zoom out and remember the bigger picture. To ask ourselves how we might use our challenges and setbacks in service of something greater than ourselves. As Epictetus put it, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." In other words, it's not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to respond. When we approach even the most difficult situations with a spirit of curiosity and compassion, we open ourselves up to the lessons and growth opportunities they have to offer, and often it's through our own struggles and setbacks that we develop the empathy and resilience to show up more fully for others. When we've walked through the fire ourselves, we're better equipped to offer a steady hand to those who are still finding their way. So don't be afraid to lean into your own challenges and growth edges, even as you look for ways to support others. Trust that by showing up fully and wholeheartedly for your own journey, you're cultivating the wisdom and compassion to make a meaningful difference in the world. And remember, no act of kindness is ever wasted. Every time we extend ourselves in service of others, we create a ripple effect of love and connection that extends far beyond what we can see. As Marcus Aurelius put it, "What we do now echoes in eternity." May we all strive to leave an echo of compassion and care, one small act at a time. Principle 12. Focus on the good stuff you've got. It's easy to get caught up in what we don't have, what we wish were different, what we feel like we're missing out on. Our consumer culture is constantly bombarding us with messages about all the ways we're not enough, all the things we need to be happy and fulfilled. But the Stoics recognized that true contentment comes not from acquiring more, but from appreciating what we already have. As Epictetus put it, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, gratitude is the key to unlocking a deep sense of abundance and sufficiency, even in the midst of life's challenges and limitations. When we focus on the good stuff we've got, we shift our attention away from lack and towards appreciation. And the truth is, no matter how difficult our circumstances may be, there is always something to be grateful for. Maybe it's the roof over our heads, the food on our table, the people who love and support us. Maybe it's the simple beauty of a sunset, the comfort of a warm cup of tea, the gift of another day to learn and grow. The key is to cultivate a habit of looking for the good, even in the midst of the hard, to train our minds to notice and savor the small joys and blessings that are always available to us, if only we take the time to pay attention. One simple way to practice this is to keep a gratitude journal where we write down a few things we're thankful for each day. It might feel a little awkward or forced at first, but over time it can help to rewire our brains towards a more positive and appreciative outlook. Another powerful practice is to take time each day to simply sit and appreciate what's around us, without trying to change or improve anything. Maybe it's taking a few deep breaths and noticing the sensation of the air moving in and out of our lungs. Maybe it's savoring a delicious meal, really tasting each bite and appreciating the flavors and textures. Maybe it's taking a moment to look around and notice the beauty and complexity of the world we inhabit. The more we practice gratitude and appreciation, the more we start to see the abundance that's always available to us. We begin to realize that we have everything we need to be happy and fulfilled, right here and now. Of course, this doesn't mean that we should never strive to improve our circumstances or work towards our goals. The Stoics were big believers in taking responsible action and living a life of purpose and virtue, but they also recognized that our happiness and peace of mind can't be contingent on external circumstances. True contentment comes from learning to be at peace with what is, even as we work towards what could be. As Seneca put it, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient, for he that is so wants nothing. So take some time each day to focus on the good stuff you've got. Make a list of all the things you're grateful for, big and small. Take a moment to savor the simple pleasures and joys that are always available to you. And remember that true wealth isn't measured by what you have, but by how much you appreciate what you have. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." May we all learn to greet each day with this sense of wonder and appreciation. May we focus on the good stuff we've got, and let that gratitude be the foundation for a life well lived. Principle 13. Let go of grudges. Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's a recipe for misery and suffering, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. As Marcus Aurelius put it, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" When we get caught up in our grievances and grudges, we give away our power and peace of mind. We become slaves to our own bitterness and hurt, unable to move forward or find joy in the present moment. But the Stoics recognized that we always have a choice in how we respond to the difficulties and injustices of life. We can't control what others do or say, but we can control our own thoughts and actions. And when we choose to let go of our anger and resentment, we free ourselves to live with greater clarity and purpose. Of course, letting go isn't always easy, especially when we've been deeply hurt or wronged. It's not about condoning bad behavior or letting others off the hook for their actions. Rather, it's about recognizing that holding on to anger only hurts ourselves in the end. As Seneca wrote, "It's a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. As you start to walk the way, just keep going, and don't let the thorny brambles hold you back. Keep on going, carry on, keep forgiving the ones who got you stuck in places you never thought you'd go in the first place, including yourself." Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing harm, but about releasing our own attachment to the pain and allowing ourselves to move forward. It's about recognizing that we all make mistakes and cause harm, often without intending to. And it's about extending the same compassion and understanding to others that we would want for ourselves. One powerful way to practice forgiveness is to try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, to imagine what might have led them to act the way they did. This doesn't mean we have to agree with their actions or let them off the hook, but it can help us to soften our own anger and find a bit more empathy and understanding. Another helpful practice is to focus on our own role in the situation and to take responsibility for our own thoughts and actions. Often, when we're holding on to a grudge, it's because we're avoiding looking at our own part in the conflict or hurt. But when we're willing to own our own mistakes and shortcomings, it becomes easier to extend that same grace to others. Ultimately, letting go of grudges is about choosing to prioritize our own peace and well-being over the temporary satisfaction of being right or holding on to anger. It's about recognizing that we're all imperfect and interconnected, and that our happiness and fulfillment depend on our ability to forgive and move forward. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" By looking at our own faults and shortcomings with honesty and compassion, we open the door to extending that same understanding to others. We begin to see that we're all struggling and learning, and that holding on to anger only keeps us stuck in the past. So the next time you find yourself caught up in a grudge or grievance, take a step back and ask yourself what you're really holding on to. What would it feel like to let go of that anger and resentment, to forgive not for their sake but for your own? Remember, forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing harm. It's about freeing yourself from the poison of bitterness and choosing to move forward with grace and resilience. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, and that our happiness and fulfillment depend on our ability to let go and start anew. As Epictetus put it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. May we all learn to loosen our grip on our grievances and grudges, to release our judgments and expectations, and find peace in the present moment. For it is only by letting go of the past that we can truly embrace the possibilities of the future. We've covered a lot of ground in this video, exploring 13 Stoic principles for living a happier and more fulfilling life. From laughing more and connecting with nature to embracing challenges and letting go of grudges. These ancient teachings offer timeless wisdom for navigating the ups and downs of the human experience. But ultimately, Stoicism isn't about following a set of rigid rules or prescriptions. It's about cultivating a way of being in the world that is grounded in virtue, resilience, and a deep sense of purpose. It's about learning to live in alignment with our highest values, even in the face of difficulty and uncertainty. As Epictetus put it, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. So, as we close out this exploration of Stoic principles, I invite you to reflect on which of these teachings resonated most deeply with you. Which ones feel like they could make a real difference in your own life and relationships? Maybe it's the reminder to find humor and lightness, even in the midst of difficulty, or the call to connect with nature as a source of grounding and perspective. Maybe it's the encouragement to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, or the invitation to let go of grudges and find peace in forgiveness. Whatever it is, I encourage you to start small and focus on one principle at a time. Remember, this isn't about overhauling your entire life overnight, but about making small, consistent shifts in your thoughts and actions over time. And as you begin to embody these teachings in your own way, trust that you're planting seeds of resilience and joy that will continue to grow and blossom over time. Trust that by showing up. Each day with a little more presence, compassion and purpose, you're not only transforming your own life, but also contributing to the healing and flourishing of the world around you. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. So go forth and be a force for good in the world, one small action and intention at a time." Embrace the challenges and joys of this human journey with a spirit of curiosity and compassion, and remember that you have everything you need to live a life of meaning and purpose, right here and now. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Stoic wisdom. May these teachings take root in your own life in ways that bring you closer to your highest self and deepest joy. And may we all continue to learn and grow together, one day at a time. Until next time, be well, be kind, and keep living a life well examined.